Those good Samaritans, the Cartwrights, just can't help themselves, can they? And based on the title, somebody's going on their last hunt. Gee, that's foreboding. Okay, let's not panic. It could just be that Joe and Hoss are so bad at hunting that they give up the practice altogether after this one. I mean, Joe seems to be having some trouble at least. We open on Joe complaining that he hasn't been able to find the longhorn sheep he's been looking for, when he just looks up and there it is. Problem solved. We've all done it, Joe. It's okay. Wouldn't you know, those Cartwrights look for any excuse to get into a brawl, especially with each other. And Joe finds it when Hoss accidentally knocks him down while he's getting ready to take the shot. Hoss claims not to know why Joe's so upset, like he didn't just see Joe out of his peripheral vision raising a rifle. Sure, Hoss. Sure. While they bicker, a figure off in the distance, covered in an Indian blanket, is watching them and pulling out a knife slowly. And then, to the shock and horror of the audience, the credits roll and nothing happens until later on that night when the boys are asleep. Only Joe jumps up like he wasn't totally asleep and wrestles the figure to the ground, revealing that she's a Shoshone woman. Some gunpowder ends up in the campfire and Hoss and Joe duck for cover. When everything quiets down again, they discover the girl they've stumbled upon is heavily pregnant and has fainted. I'm going to get it out of the way now, as it's a note unrelated to the story, but, Joe looks dad-burn fine in that blue coat. I mean, if I weren't such a committed Adam gal. So Joe gets the idea right off that this girl must be running away from her people for some reason. Hoss isn't convinced. Either way, the girl doesn't speak to them, so they don't get any answers from her. She refuses their help until Hoss invokes the priority of her baby needing to eat. They chomp down on some nutritious cattle fodder, to Joe's dismay. The funny irony here is that Michael Landon would marry a vegan the last time around, so this was just prep for him. I kid, vegan friends. Disclaimer. The Ponderosa podcast does not condone the overchiding of vegans, and our humble host is in fact a vegetarian who is not above a little self-flatulating joke from time to time. For more information on this sensitive topic, please subscribe. Hoss takes charge and speaks kindly to this girl while mothering the heck out of Joe, which is the sweetest thing. Joe seems to defer to his older brother's wisdom, and it is here that we once again see this brotherly bond that is so famous in the show's lore. Little moments like this lessen as Joe grows up, but I still cherish going back to these days in the early episodes. Joe has a theory that she understands every word they're saying, and that she's choosing to act like she doesn't. Hoss sort of writes it off as Joe being too untrusting, and perhaps we're meant to take Hoss's side in the debate, but I remember agreeing with Joe the first time I saw the episode, just based on the little smiles she gives them when they're not looking, like she knows that they're really trying to help her, and understands everything going on around her. The boys argue a while on what to do. There's a good chance a snowstorm could hit up in the mountains where they are, and it won't do to be caught in it, especially with a pregnant lady, and the lack of game they seem to be finding. Rather, not finding, I guess. Speaking of game, Joe is off collecting more of that cattle food when he sees his prize ram again, and goes to take another shot when he starts to hear voices in his head. No, that's not one of my jokes. That actually happens. He hears Hoss in his head tell him not to shoot because they need to save the ammo just in case there's a fight later with the tribe who are looking for their camping guest. Joe waves off the voice, and Hoss winds up behind him in the flesh. I think Hoss may be telepathic, folks. Answers in the comments. Although maybe not, because when he tells Hoss the longhorn was there, it's gone again, so Hoss thinks Joe's just plain insane. And he's hearing voices in his head, so you know what, maybe he is a little bit cuckoo. I don't know. Either way, the ghost ram is gone now, Joe. It's all right, baby. He can't hurt you anymore. Hoss has fixed up the shelter for the lady and is nesting like he's the expectant mother. I swear. He tells Joe that he has absolutely no idea how to go about helping birth a baby, and follows up by giving Joe a honeydew list of instructions on how to help birth a baby. Some undefined time later, Joe and Hoss go swimming after they see a flock of ducks flying overhead and decide it might be fun to bathe with them. It's just like the rubber ones Hop Sing used to put in the tub with them when Joe was a baby. Adam never got one, though. He was too old. Rude. It's okay, though. He built clipper ships out of old matchsticks and floated them in his bathwater. He was fine. That's right, love. You never gave us that bath scene, so now I'm just making stuff up about you. That's what you get. Joe and Hoss float behind some brush, and the ducks never see it coming. Joe dunking Hoss under to keep him from sneezing. Joe pulls one of the ducks under too, and out the other side. Part Labrador on his maternal grandparents' side, he sticks it in his mouth until they get to the shore. All of that work seems unnecessary, considering how cold it must be up there, when we see him catch a rabbit soon after. The boys talk openly in front of the girl in an effort to see just how much she understands. Joe then shoots an arrow near Hoss, and Hoss thinks they're under attack. Joe does that trademark cackle, and soon the girl is laughing too. Laughing right into child labor. Who knew a good chuckle could induce labor? Maybe those boys knew what they were doing after all. Hoss is panicking and barking orders at Joe left and right, and Joe gets into his little boy voice telling Hoss not to yell at him, and he's too freaking cute, I can't stand it. Don't yell at me, I'll do it, just don't yell at me. Joe waits outside while Hoss helps her deliver, and they both look so proud when he emerges with the newborn that you'd think one of them was the father. Hoss teaches Joe how to hold a baby, and Joe takes the child nervously. When the mother asks after the baby, she assumes she has a daughter. When Hoss corrects her that the baby is a boy, she looks worried. Back outside the tent, Joe discovers that the baby has blue eyes, a telltale sign that the father isn't an Indian. The boys soon realize that the sky is a little too clear and that there are no animals anywhere around. Pa once told them that the animals know when a storm is coming, so they decide to pack up and ship out. For some time, there have been signs being left that the Shoshone want the girl and her child back. Joe's had enough and says that he's done with the typical Cartwright decorum and presents one of the medicine bags that was left in their camp overnight. Hoss points out that it isn't allowed for a Shoshone woman to look upon them, and Joe feels guilty for having interrogated her. On the way out of the mountains, she falls off the horse that she's riding, and the horse keeps going with the baby still on board. They catch up quickly, and both are fine. Just when you think this is another of those split episodes where only two Cartwrights are on screen, we see Ben and Adam looking for the lost family members, Ben being a little more concerned than Adam. He's used to Hoss and Joe having no sense of how much time's gone by. The boys find another medicine bag, and this time the girl and her baby are gone. Hoss and Joe now realize that they're being warned not to interfere. But they're Cartwrights, so of course they're going to interfere. Don't these people know who they are? They walk right into the Shoshones and run into Ben and Adam just in time. Now that the family is reunited, everyone goes home. Back at the ranch, Ben chastises them for helping a pregnant woman? He says they should not have gotten involved. Adam makes a comment about how they were supposed to be looking for sheep, and Ben tells him this is no time for that trademark sarcasm, so you shut your stupid sexy mouth, you hazel-eyed king. Or was that just my interpretation of what he said? Anyway, you get the idea. Hop Sing didn't sign up for having another baby to care for, and he's fresh out of rubber duckies, because they didn't tell him ahead of time that they'd be bringing home a kid. Later that night, Ben is alone with the new mother when she is racked with fever. He realizes how serious the situation is and tries to get her to tell him who the baby's father is, just in case. She dies before she can get the words out. And as if on cue, a caller is at the door, and Hop Sing, having gone to the Adam Cartwright School of Sarcasm, shows his displeasure beautifully. Hey, Hop Sing's family, so he got a really good tuition rate. The two men at the door turn out to be the baby's father and grandfather. Like I said, as if on cue. The older of the two is a rich man who mentions that he once offered Ben a bribe, and now he knows better. I would have really loved to see that, to be honest. He then explains that his son is only married to the girl by Shoshone standards and seems rather ashamed of the whole thing. His son, however, still loves his wife very much. He left her soon after they were married because his father runs his life and he was afraid. Remember that the only difference between run and ruin is one letter. When Ben informs them both that the girl has died, he gets his nerve back and goes to the child. His father would prefer that the whole thing just go away and wants nothing to do with the baby. At the funeral, we learn that the girl was the daughter of the chief, and the tribe returns for his last living relative, his newborn grandson. At first, the baby's father demands his child, and Ben sets him straight, letting him know that the chief won't leave without his grandson. The young man realizes what he must do and takes the baby for both of them to join the tribe as the episode ends. Hoss and Joe never even get a goodbye scene with this little baby that they helped bring into the world. So a couple things. One, that conflict at the end resolved way too fast for my liking. We don't get to see Jason Kyle stand up to his father or see how the Shoshone take to having him asked to join them. I mean, I don't imagine just anyone gets to say they want to live with the Indians. His time on screen is so short that I only care about him because of the baby. I feel nothing for him as a person, really. His father is a jerk and I can't stand him, but he didn't have enough time on screen to make him a compelling villain. My other issue is my biggest. The mother's name is never given to us. Even when looking up the cast for this episode, she is credited as Shoshone Girl. Jason could have said the name of the woman he married and got pregnant just one single time, couldn't he? I will say that Channa Eden had the easiest acting job ever because she only had to speak 2 words the entire episode. Don't get me wrong, I love all of the scenes with Hoss and Joe, and those were what mattered, but the penultimate conflict only lasted a few minutes. If you watch it on MeTV from the time they get to the Ponderosa to the end, it's only about 15 minutes with commercials. I do enjoy watching this episode, but it's only for Hoss and Joe's banter. The guest characters don't stand out to me at all. Not one of them. Okay, the baby's cute. That's about it. Raymond Bailey as Sumner Kyle is the cruel rich grandfather of the baby, and it was good casting for the short time on screen, I guess. I can imagine how horrible it must have been to grow up with him. Stephen Tyrrell as the baby's father looks the part of a whiny rich kid who backed out of his commitment to his wife just because daddy wasn't going to approve. This was a good Joe Hoss moment episode. The conflict was like background filler. If you're okay with that, then you'll probably enjoy it. It isn't one I go back to often, personally, and when I do, it's usually just for the Joe and Hoss moments. And also for Joe swimming with a duck in his mouth. That's a good one.